back into the agenda, item G, Commissioner Business. And item 1, I'll recognize Commissioner Goudreau.
And the reason why I put this on the agenda, we've all been approached and sat down with the Alleghany Memorial Hospital, Board of Directors, Rob Castillo, and the request, that they made to us, substantial request, for taxpayer funds. I felt it really needs to get out in the open and make the public aware of it. During the meeting, Don and I were talking, and I did ask if like a referendum or something could apply, which the information is in our packets now, and I think Don can walk you through that if you have questions. But what I'd like to see out of it is maybe a public type forum, and I think really the hospital board probably should go to the people and tell them exactly what's going on and what they're requesting. And, I wanted to put it on the agenda and get everybody's thoughts and feelings and how we should proceed.
And I think it's important, as you pointed out, that the public understand that the hospital has not yet made a formal request. We would invite them. Obviously, they're as any citizen is, they have the opportunity to get on the agenda, and I would recommend that they get on the agenda and come and make a formal request. Therefore, it does become a public issue. It does open it up for discussion. Now, that's just as far as we can go. We're here to listen to what they might request. As far as what their board does, that's their choice as to whether they. I tend to agree that the more it's talked about and the more citizens are aware, whether they do it in some type of a public hearing or public get-together at the auditorium or wherever they might deem necessary. But I think I would encourage the board, the hospital board, to make a formal request, come and present a program to the commissioners. I know each one of us has probably been talked to individually, but as far as being a formal request to the Board of County Commissioners, it's not been made yet.
Which, I agree, and I understand. And that probably would be a good first step, for the hospital board. The reason why I was thinking more a public forum, because you could have a little more give and take, and questions. And, here it's kind of structured, and the public really doesn't have an opportunity to ask questions of the, the hospital board, and that's the only reason why I wanted to go that way.
I think I would agree with that. So, and this, I don't think there's few issues out there that would affect every person, every citizen in our county. With that magnitude, I think I'm speaking for myself. I think we probably all understand that there is a huge need for medical care, but like Mr. Goudreau pointed out, there's a lot of questions, I think, that the citizens would have of this hospital that could be answered by the hospital administration and the hospital board. I can think of several, and I would just encourage that we probably can't. I think that would be that'd be a good first step to let every citizen we have an opportunity to talk about this issue.
And I want to add my voice to that too. I think a lot of us are thinking the same things along the same lines. Since we don't, we're not, as Don would put it, in the hospital business. We're not running that hospital. That's we can't ask them. We can ask, but we can't make them have a public hearing. But I think we could recommend. I would add my voice to that. I think engage the auditorium, set up some mics, ask the public to come, put out what's happened, let people ask questions and respond to those questions. That's not our purview here, though, I believe. But yes, we probably, we need to hear from them openly. As you said, we've all been talked to privately, but the money is astounding. And we just need to, the public needs to hear how they got to this point and how bad the situation is. We need a hospital in this community, there's no question. We need medical care with our aging population and other concerns, but we definitely need some sort of hospital in this community. And no, I'm sure, I wouldn't speak for you, but I would guess that none of us sitting here would want to see the hospital leave or go down. But I'd like to hear from the public too. So I appreciate you bringing it up.
Anything else?
I agree with everything that's been said.
Well, I guess as far as proceeding, then, do we just allow Don to get with the hospital board to suggest we go that route, or leave it up to them whether they come back and make their formal presentation, to this board, or maybe they do both.
I think they probably realize that nothing can move forward unless they come to us. I could see us being a part of the discussion, not the sole part, but a part of the discussion as we would with any economic development factor. They're probably the second largest producer of jobs, and it would impact not only from the standpoint of loss of health care, it would impact our county immensely with the loss of 160 to 180 jobs.
Right, yeah, I understand that. We really can't afford to lose the hospital. We've got to figure something out. And the key point to that too, when they're having a discussion, they can lay out their plan for the future too, what they're absolutely working with through, the hospitalist program, and, so there's benefits for them there.
If I may, I just sort of summarize what I think I'm hearing. For me to proceed proceed to contact the hospital, I would recommend that they formally come and put the numbers out and things of that nature. On the second part of that, sort of my line of thinking is that before this board seriously goes down the path of funding the request, you're going to have just a tremendous amount of questions that would be asked. I mean, whether it be, I'm talking about asked of you as an elected leader, and that's where I would encourage the hospital to do some type of public forum, some type of hearing, because the reality is if they don't answer it, if the hospital doesn't answer the series of questions, what happened, where are you at, what is your long-term plan, if they don't answer those questions, then if this board is seriously considering funding it, then there's going to be an expectation for you to be able to answer those questions. And so if it's okay with the board, if it's fine with each of you, I would call them and basically look to do both. Tell them recommend they go ahead and get in front of the board to go ahead and lay the numbers out. Because the numbers did kind of move around a little bit as they were having their discussions with you individually, so I think they need to come with the solid request, this is it. But then at the same time, if it's okay with this board, I would highly recommend that they start thinking in terms of having some type of public forum and I wouldn't public forum to answer those questions, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it being, I'm joking about this, when I walked back here and saw y'all talking and I was, well, anyways, we're talking about who would facilitate it. I don't know if this would be necessarily a county facilitated forum.
No, I wouldn't agree to that.
I mean, this isn't, I think the form, in my mind, the way I'm looking at it, it should be a form that all the questions that would come to you, I mean, and they will come to you. I mean, whether it be management questions or why do we need a hospital, to long-term planning, all that to be held in the forum in some organized fashion, and you as commissioners could attend that forum, just like everybody else is attending that forum.
And that's what's happened with any economic development issue we've ever discussed. It's always been the individual or the organization who does the presentation. We're there, but we're not the ones who normally facilitate the presentation.
I will contact the hospital and summarize these discussions.
Thank you, Don.
In item 2, are you ready to move from item 1?
We'll move on to item 2. At our last meeting, Mr. Smith asked us to look at the National Defense Authorization Act, and specifically, well, we passed out some information and spoke on it again today, you know, the various states that have either considered it or they are considering it in El Paso County, Colorado. Passed a resolution, I guess basically against the act, and mainly there's you know, a couple of chapters in the act, which would be 1021 and 1022, where it can specifically really strip the rights away of United States citizens. And, you know, the way I view that, that's in direct violation of our United States Constitution, you know, Amendments 5 and 6. And when we took an oath of office, you know, here, part of that oath of office was to defend the Constitution of the United States. So that's why I feel it's appropriate to bring it up really in a county form here. I think we should look at developing a resolution, you know, similar to the county in Colorado, opposing the specific language in 1021 and 1022 of the National Defense Authorization Act. And if we adopt that, I would would like to make a resolution or a recommendation to the General Assembly to follow Virginia and the other states to, you know, oppose it on a state level. And, you know, I don't know, is there feelings on that? Because, you know, I'm ready to make a motion to that effect, and, you know, I'll certainly do that. And the motion will be really developing the resolution on the county level opposing the National Defense Authorization Act, and specifically 1021 and 1022, and making a recommendation to the North Carolina General Assembly to take the matter up.
And if that's going to be in the form of a motion, I'm not so sure that it doesn't have some merit. I've tried to study this as closely as I can. The two sections that you mentioned, Mr. Goudreau, I think it was 1021, 1022.
Correct.
Those are the sections in question as I understand it. And there have been, I think the spirit of the law originally was to provide for defense and through training, and it's a mammoth law. It's huge. But those two sections, there's a lot of debate about it, and a lot of groups are upset with it, and I think they've heard from the Secretary of Defense, possibly the head of the FBI, that may be opposed to this. There have been some letters. I think how that got passed in the first place, well, I don't know how it got passed in the first place. I have my own opinions, but there's some merit to it, and if you're putting that in the form of a motion, I would second.
Yes, yeah, that was a motion.
We have a motion and a second. You want to restate your motion? I'm not sure I totally understood it.
What I would like to do in my motion is for this county to adopt a resolution in opposition to the National Defense Authorization Act, specifically sections 1021 and 1022, as it applies to United States citizens, and removing their rights under the United States Constitution, and specifically Amendments 5 and 6. And, you know, if you need me to go through those amendments, I can. And the second part of that resolution then would be to request the North Carolina General Assembly, or suggest to the North Carolina General Assembly to take the matter up in Raleigh.
Okay, you've heard the motion. We have a second.
I'd like just to ask a couple questions there before you call for the vote. The resolution you're talking about, is it going to follow this ceremony?
It'll follow closely to that, and it'd be something, and I wish Donna was here, because, we'll need her help really authoring the resolution.
Well, I'd just like to say, I spent my professional life in law enforcement. And, to me, it's un-American to even think that an American citizen can be helped and not guaranteed certain rights that's supposed to be in the Constitution. And I don't see how any American citizen could be for this.
That's right.
I mean, it's just un-American. So I would totally support that.
I think there are several groups, as Commissioner Smith said, who have risen in opposition to this, and they're not necessarily, as I understand it, could be wrong, but as I understand it, they're not necessarily on one side of the political spectrum or the other. Also the ACLU is against it. President Obama has talked about veto. So it's
Right.
not just one side of the spectrum in opposition. There are many different groups of various political persuasions.
Right.
And I didn't agree with it.
And following up a little bit on what Commissioner Cox, this was passed by both the House and the Senate. It couldn't have gotten passed if it had not been passed by the House, U.S. House, and the U.S. Senate. So how that happened, we may not ever know. But this is an issue that was addressed by both parties. Both parties agreed to it, or it wouldn't have gotten passed. If the president chooses to veto it, that's a whole different situation. But just to follow up on that, there is a motion, there is a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anything else, Mr. Goudreau?
No, sir.
This time, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion,
Second.